Hello, peeps and creeps, and welcome to Fright Club. I'm Gav, he's Danny.
Hello.
We are the Fright Club and this is a brand new episode of Monday Night Frights. On tonight's show, we're talking about the animated classic Scooby Doo on Zombie Island.
Ruh-roh.
Zoinks!
Zoink, Scoob.
And we're back with another episode of Monday Night Frights. It's a new season, Danny. Season 4.
Season 4.
How have we made it to
How
4
have we made it
seasons?
this far? I have no idea. And you put up that post the other day about the 1 year anniversary. And I was just like,
yes.
we did 3 seasons in a year. We interviewed some amazing people. We've been joined by some amazing guests such as Kate and Adam and Gary and a whole load of others have joined us in that time. And now we're on season 4 and we're going to talk about fucking Scooby Doo.
I know, it's
taking us this long to talk about Scooby.
I have to admit, I didn't envision whenever we first started talking about this show that we'd be talking about Scooby Doo, but I'm so happy that we're here at this point now.
So glad that we are, because again, this is one that I kind of went, Gav, Scooby Doo on Zombie Island. I almost said Skull Island again. Yeah. Skull Island's from the first live action movie, folks, where James Gunn cut his teeth as a screenwriter.
He did, yeah.
But yes, I loved Scooby Doo growing up, and this movie in particular is one that I remember being on Cartoon Network most Halloweens. And I would have watched it like every year without fail, but I hadn't watched it since I was a Wayne. And coming back to it now was just a really nice nostalgia hit, but also it holds up really, really well. Like a lot of that stuff you go revisit from your childhood, and you're almost the like rose tinted glasses fall away from your face as you kind of go, oh, this is actually a bit dog shit. But there ain't nothing dog shit about this. It's an absolute dog treat. This is a Scooby snack.
It's definitely perfect Scooby snack movie. It was released in 1998, and I would have been 15 years old, so it was sort of. When the film started coming out, I was at the age where I kind of... You were 5, I
was 5.
I was kind of at the age where I didn't really see the films, and actually this was the first time that I'd watched Zombie Island. I've seen a few of the other ones. I remember Ghoul School and I think maybe Boo Brothers and bits and pieces of the other ones, but this was the first time that I'd seen it from start to finish. So I was...
Show off my... They're not gonna get in shot. I'm wearing my Scooby Doo Converse today, especially for the video.
What a coincidence, Danny!
What a coincidence! I love them. The best thing about it, they've got they're absolutely scuffed, but they've got like Scooby's wee pendant on the front of them. Great Converse, They do ones that look like the Mystery Machine, and I want them too.
Oh, I've seen those. Yeah, I've seen those.
Sorry I disturbed you, but I just got excited. No, I'm so excited in the moment.
I know, I can tell that you're excited. It's quite early. You've had a few coffees maybe at this point.
I have.
What was I saying? I was just saying, yeah, I hadn't, because I was a wee bit older, I hadn't really paid much attention to the movies, other than the fact that whenever I worked in HMV, like I remember seeing all the DVDs and being like, oh, what's this one about and what's this one about, and I was quite obsessed with seeing how far Scooby Doo had progressed. But before we get into Zombie Island, I wanted to kind of just talk about Scooby Doo in general and talk about the animated show, and it started back in 1969. Did you watch a lot of the TV show whenever you were a kid?
Yeah, we would have watched quite a lot of Scooby Doo. So there was like obviously the Scooby Doo, and then there was Scooby Doo Where Are You, and then there was Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo, and there just seemed to be like a constant. And even now, Una's got younger sisters and stuff, and every so often they'll be watching like the newest version of Scooby Doo, which is a completely different animation style, completely different voice cast, and I mean the humor's different as well. It's a bit more kind of silly, but I mean Shaggy and Scooby never seem to change. They're always exactly the same. It's just the other characters around them have kind of changed. But there's always nice wee like homages to the original Scooby Doo in there as well, like some of the creature designs, and sometimes they actually don't even alter those at all. They keep them the same. But yeah, no, we would have grown up watching quite a lot of Scooby Doo, and then because we had Cartoon Network, we were able to watch like the movies and stuff when they premiered at Halloween and all. And then I was young enough then to enjoy the live action Scooby Doo when it came out, and then there was the Scooby Doo 2 as well. So yeah, no, we actually did quite a lot of Scooby Dooing.
Was the island? It was Spooky Island, wasn't it? Not Skull Island.
Was it Spooky Island or Skull?
I think Spooky Island. Yeah, it's definitely Spooky Island.
Spooky, I thought it was Skull Island was the first one, and then but the soundtrack for that was dynamite. And you know what? Actually, this one as well, Zombie Island. I forgot how dynamite that soundtrack is, and also didn't realize that the cover of the main Scooby-Doo theme song is done by Third Eye Blind.
Yep.
For this one, which when the credits were rolling, I was like, "That's incredible."
I only realized that when I was doing a wee bit of research on it, but yeah, the tunes in this is fucking awesome.
Amazing. Absolutely. What was it? Sky Cycle? Is it does the other two songs, the zombie song and the ghost song?
I'm not
sure. The Ghosts Aren't Real one. I think it's a band called, I think it's Sky Cycle. But I could be wrong. But again, two absolute bops.
I know, definitely. But I remember watching the TV show. It would have been obviously in the late 80s, early 90s, but I think it was the one they did with Scrappy. That's the one I remember first. And I remember Scrappy Doo being sort of almost the complete opposite to Scooby, where obviously he was his nephew, but he was like really, come on, I want to fight the ghosts and I want to do this, and Scooby was like,
let me at him. Yeah.
Oh, Scooby was
always scared.
I really loved Scrappy Doo. I loved that idea that he was just this tiny dog and wanted to fight fucking everything.
Small dog syndrome. Dog syndrome. But my ma hated Scrappy.
Really?
She was like, Scrappy's one wee dick. Yeah, ask her about it now. She's like,
he's a wee dick,
I love Scooby Doo, but she hated Scrappy Doo. And then what'd you call? There was Scooby's. I can't remember. Was he a cousin or an uncle? Doopy Doo.
There was I think you're right. Yeah, there was another. There was a
grey one. There was a grey Great Dane that was his uncle, who was like a hillbilly and had the wee hat and all. What was his? But I think if you look up, there's like an entire like Doo family tree that you can find, because again, that over that many episodes, you've been introduced to so many different Doos.
But it was created back in the late 60s as a way, because at that time it was on CBS, and apparently CBS had been getting a lot of complaints about their Saturday morning cartoon products being too violent. And they had the producers and the creators at CBS were like, right, we need to come up with something else to combat this. And they had this idea that they wanted to create something with like a mystery team. They weren't really sure, but they knew it was going to be a team that solved mysteries. And so they handed it over to two guys called Joe Ruby and Ken Spears, who created these characters for Hanna-Barbera. And like Hanna-Barbera is legendary production company that has created some of the greatest animated content of all time. And Scooby Doo's right up there with like
Scooby Doo's up there, the Flintstones, Jetsons, Wacky Races. I think Wacky Races. I think they've all kind of done crossovers.
They have,
with each other at some point.
Yogi Bear as well.
Yogi Bear, of course. How could we forget about the picnic baskets?
Exactly. Yeah. And Boo Boo. What was I saying? So they created this show. It was 5 teenagers, whatever. But apparently the original concept was they were going to be like a rock band that traveled around in a van. But instead of, or in between doing gigs, they would solve mysteries. And eventually that changed and altered slightly to what we got today. But the original names I've written their names down here. It was Jeff, Mike, Kelly, Linda, and the dog that they had was called Too Much.
So it's just a bit too much.
It's just a wee bit too much, but they decided to change those names, obviously, to the great team that we know now: Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby.
And Scooby Doo.
Ooh, like Scooby. So yeah, I'm quite glad that they did change the names, because I really like the names that they used. And they ditched the whole sort of rock band thing and just said, right, these are just a group of
just a group of teens out solving mysteries.
Solving mysteries called Mystery Inc. And they've got the their van, which is iconic.
I mean,
And
the Mystery Machine is absolutely, and even like it's kind of done. And I noticed watching the movie again recently that they've actually kind of changed the van in this. It's a bit more kind of modern, but it still has that iconic paint job and look to it, which we all know and love, you know. And I mean, I think anyone gets excited. Like there was one time I seen, you know, you can rent like the cars from the movies and stuff. But one of the ones I seen advertising had a mystery machine. And I was like, how cool would it be to have a mystery machine roll up to your party?
I have we actually, when I was watching this, Janine was watching it as well, and we got a photograph outside the mystery machine in Universal Studios.
Yeah.
So we'll have to hook that out and try to see and put it up on the socials.
Up on the Instagram. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Class. We didn't get our picture with Scooby and Shaggy, I don't think.
Oh.
Either they weren't there doing photo opportunities at the time, or I don't know, maybe we were just passing through real quickly and we couldn't stop with them. But I do remember getting a picture at the mystery machine, or at least taking a picture of it. Nice. So it's awesome. But the original title for the show was The Mysteries 5, and it was based on Enid Blyton's The Famous Five, you know, those famous books, obviously.
Yep.
That were massive. And that was basically the concept, and they just worked on that and worked on it and worked on it until they came up with the original concept. And Scooby was originally always a Great Dane originally, and then they changed it from a Great Dane to a sheepdog, and they worked with the sheepdog for a while until they eventually went back to the Great Dane.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly sure why they decided to change it. I think it was because a lot of the early concepts were based on a show called The Archie Show, which was massive back at this time. And I want to say maybe there was a sheepdog in one of those shows, and they decided not to go with that and go back with a Great Dane.
Maybe. Could have maybe been the whole like Lassie thing too, you know. I know Lassie wasn't a sheepdog, but still like a long-haired sort of smaller dog.
Collie, part of that family type thing, yeah.
Yeah, whereas like a Great Dane, it's funny because I think what works with Scooby is he's a Great Dane. He's supposed to be this big, massive, imposing dog.
Yeah.
And he's not. He's far from that. You know, he's just this little fraidy cat, you know.
Scared, yeah. Just basically him and Shaggy are just frightened. And all they like to do is just eat
and be scared.
Eat and be scared, yeah.
Yeah, eat and be scared. I mean, what a life to live, you know.
Do you know where they came up with the name Scooby Doo, though? Maybe you do, I don't know.
No, actually, no, never heard.
Interesting fact. I didn't actually know this. I'm sure loads of people know this. This might be a common fact. I don't know. But the creators, when they were when they're trying to think of names, they listened to a song by Frank Sinatra called "Strangers in the Night." And there's a bit at the end of that song where he does this sort of scat, and he goes dooby dooby doo boop boop boop, and apparently they really like that, and so
really like that. So
that stuck in their head, and they were like, "Oh, dooby dooby Scooby Doo Doo," and they came up with Scooby Doo. So that's
Scooby Dooby Doo.
I know,
nice. I did not know that, and I bet that probably isn't like. I'm sure if that came up in a general knowledge quiz, a general knowledge quiz, a wee quiz. I'm gonna do a pub quiz. But yeah, I wouldn't have known that, and I don't know if other people would. But if you did, let us know in the comments below.
Yes, please let us know.
But yeah, interesting.
Nice. I thought it was fun. I love reading, finding out, and discovering facts like stuff like that. You know, it's like if that song didn't exist, this show would not be called Scooby Doo. It'd be called something else. It'd probably still be as successful, but we never know. But it's interesting to go back and be
like, would have maybe stuck with the Too Much name.
Too much,
it's just too much. Well, too much. That wouldn't have had the same ring to Scooby Doo. Too much.
I know, but they could have played on so many puns with that. You know, it could have been. You never know. You really just don't know.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say about Scooby Doo is it is one of the most iconic and probably one of the most important animated TV shows ever.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about Hanna-Barbera and how important that team and that partnership has been over the years with the shows that they've released. And you know, Flintstones is obviously hugely influential as well, but I think Scooby Doo's right up there.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You know, I think if you say to anybody, Scooby Doo, they'll either try and do like a Freddy or Scooby impersonation, or they'll start doing the "Come on, Scooby Doo, where are you?" Yeah, exactly. Everybody knows the song. Everybody knows the voices. Everybody knows what the whole their shtick's about. I don't think there's anybody, and as I said, it's still going strong now. It still has its own versions, but the thing is, even though yes, there's newer versions on, they still play the old episodes because the old episodes still hold up so well, and they still have the same great meaning behind them all, which is usually that there's nothing to be scared of because the scariest thing out there is man.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think was what makes this movie great because actually.
It's not.
It wasn't the case in this one.
There's something actually there. Monsters are real.
Big spoop.
I know, but what I loved about Scooby Doo and what I still do love about them is all the things that make it iconic, like zoinks and just the voices, like
the voice cast is amazing. And I mean, like over the years, yes, different people have kind of taken up those mantles, but it's very, very rare, especially with Scooby and Shaggy, that you'll get much of a change from those voices. They generally, I think you listen to the likes of Joker and you think, oh, Mark Hamill's Joker's the most iconic, but every other person who's voiced the Joker has done their own take on that voice. It's never been the same. Like Mark Hamill's is Mark Hamill's. John DiMaggio's is John DiMaggio's. They're always different. Whereas Shaggy and Scooby, no matter the voice actor, that voice is going to stay the same. And it's the same with the likes of Velma and Daphne and Fred. Changes a bit, but never too much. And they never really veer off from that voice formula for those characters because people do have such an attachment to them. I think no one ever really grows out of Scooby-Doo. And I think there is a real comfort. I think there's a real comfort in watching Scooby-Doo as well. Sometimes, as I said, I find myself watching this being like, I'm having a really nice time because I'm having like childhood memories of watching this, but also enjoying it now as an adult because the writing of Scooby-Doo does appeal to all age ranges. It's not just written for kids. There's wee bits of adult stuff sprinkled in there too, which I think is what makes children's programming so great, is because when it's written well, it'll entertain the adults as much as it entertains the kids,
and it'll last as well.
Exactly.
It's, you were speaking about the voices there. Like I think obviously Shaggy and Scooby are the most iconic voices of the bunch. Fred does have an iconic voice as well because he was voiced by Frank Welker, who is a legend in animation. He's done so many shows from the 70s right through. I think he's still working today, but he's done a lot of big shows. He's pretty much any big show that you can think of that was a cartoon from the 70s right through, he's been a part of it somehow. He did, he was in Dungeons and Dragons. I think he was in the real Ghostbusters as well. He's been in loads of things over the years. His voice is just iconic as well. But the voice of Scooby-Doo was by a guy called Don Messick. I think he did his voice for many, many years. And I'm not, obviously, have no idea who's doing it now. But a bit like Kermit the Frog, you have that sort of thing where the voice just has to be the same. And if you do listen to it from different generations, you probably will realize that it's not nuances, the same, but it's just it's that iconic voice. And Scooby-Doo, for me, when I was watching this film, I was just like you, like I was getting goosebumps. I was getting nostalgia. It got to a point where when the song actually played at the start, I actually got a wee bit sort of like, whew, a wee bit emotional because it did bring me back. But it was also one of those things where I realized, maybe for the first time, that Scooby-Doo was my introduction to horror. It was like when I was sitting in front of the TV as a whatever 3, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, whatever, I was going, I love these, I love these castles. I love the fact that they're running away from this horror creature that we find out isn't actually a monster. But at the end of the day, I love the designs. It got me into horror. And along with other animated shows like the real Ghostbusters, and I wanted to give a shout out to one of my favorite cartoons ever, Gravedale High, as well. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, that's not what I'm familiar with. But yeah, man, I was going to say exactly the same thing watching this. I was like, this is where my love of horror spawns from. Scooby-Doo, Count Duckula, Trapdoor, all those kind of things. But definitely Scooby-Doo has been the most integral part of my love for monster mysteries. And I mean that there's homages all throughout Scooby Doo to other horror films. You know, you look at the likes of Creature from the Black Lagoon, you've got your sea monsters, you've got your scary clowns, and you know, it's very obvious that the writers of Scooby Doo had a very clear love for horror because it comes across in the creatures. That are shown throughout the show. And I mean, what was it? Even the Robo Man is very much, you know, the day the earth stood still.
Yeah.
And there's so much, but those characters again have become so iconic within animation. You know, you could show me a picture of the diver, the ghoul diver, and I'd go, that's Scooby Doo. You just know again that kind of iconic look, and Hanna-Barbera has an iconic look, but you just know Scooby-Doo's, you know the characters, you know the creatures from Scooby-Doo, and the old man Crothers and stuff like that. There, you'd be like, oh, he's the bad guys from Scooby-Doo, of course. Yeah, what a fantastic show, and it always sets everything up so nice, and just a beautiful kind of domino effect of everything happening that leads to the eventual capture of the bad guy.
I know. And I would have got away with it ahead of me.
I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
I mean, that's talk about iconic lines. That's as iconic as anything in cinema and animation. For me personally, like Scooby Doo influenced so many cartoons, but it also influenced so many just television shows and films as well.
It's influenced so much after. I read a fantastic book about 2 years ago called Meddling Kids, and the whole premise of it was a group. So obviously it was a bit on the nose, obviously, what they were talking about, but they couldn't use the names. And but again, same idea. It's a bunch of people who were, as teenagers, went out and solved mysteries and found out that it wasn't real and all that there. But as they've got older, they've all gone their separate ways and moved away from the local town that they solved mysteries in. But then something calls them back to the town, and it turns out to be basically like a Cthulhu type thing going on. But it's very much about what would happen if these characters grew up, drifted away from each other, but then were brought back by some sort of sense of duty to what they used to do in their youth. And it was really good, really nice. And again, even the name is a straight up just tribute to that line, meddling kids.
Definitely, you know? But so I think it was by the 80s they started doing some feature films. They did one-off specials. I think maybe in the early 80s, like 1 hour long specials. And obviously there'd been different versions of the TV show over the years. There was, as you said, there was the Scrappy Doo version, and then there was the young version where it was like they were all young. There was a pup named Scooby Doo.
Yeah, pup named Scooby Doo. Yeah.
I don't really remember much about that, which would indicate that I didn't enjoy it much. But I did like the Scrappy Doo versions, and all the reruns from the original show used to always rerun all the time. And
used to be on all the time. And then there was Where Are You, Scooby Doo? I think there was one just called Mystery Incorporated. And then you had all, as you say, all the specials, and then the movies, Scooby Doo and Ghoul School, and then as the years went on, you got into the noughties when they started like teaming up. You had all the Hanna-Barbera crossovers. You had Scooby Doo and Batman, where he teamed up with the old animated series Batman that Hanna-Barbera did. I think
that was in the 70s.
Was that? But like did they do that crossover in the 70s?
Yeah, I think it was late 70s. No, it was a one-off special in
one-off special then.
70s or early 80s, maybe it was. But it was. I think
they did, and then they did another one. I think later on as well. And then there's the banana. I think they teamed up with the Banana Splits at one point, and then you've got all the WWE content. You know, he teams up with all the wrestlers. I think there's one with the Undertaker and John Cena and. Who's he not teamed up with? And also coming out soon, which I am so excited about, the Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog out of nowhere is coming, and I cannot wait. I can't wait to watch it because, again, grew up with Courage the Cowardly Dog and the weird, surreal humor / horror of that show. So yeah, those two teaming up. I mean, why it hasn't been done sooner, I don't know. but I'm ready for it. I'm here for it, and it will be
You're here for
watched
it.
as soon as it comes out.
Well, I'm definitely here for rewatching all the films and
Mhm.
going back to watch some of the specials as well,
I
because
mean, I know we've said we're going to try to commit to getting all the Treehouse of Horrors done, but do we maybe need to throw a wee Scooby Doo in each
I'm
season
thinking
now going forward?
I'm thinking we might need to do another show just based on Scooby Doo. There's been so
We
many fucking films and specials and stuff, so I'm happy to do
Ooh,
that. We'll see. Maybe
what could we title such a thing? I think we
we'll
maybe
think of
need to
something.
ask our Fright Club
Peeps and creeps, yeah.
peeps and creeps to comment below what name suggestions could you come up for a Scooby Doo specific show.
Yeah. Think of some names and drop them in the comments below, or hit us up on Twitter and
Meddling
Instagram.
Mangs.
Yeah, we'll see.
A pair of meddling
Meddling
Mangs.
Mangs. We'll see where it's going. But so let's talk about Zombie Island anyway. This was
Let's talk about Zombie
released in
Island.
1998. It was directed by a gentleman called Jim Stenstrom, I believe his name was. He had worked for Hanna-Barbera. I think he was like a character creator, designer, animator, and he'd worked on shows like The Smurfs and Tom and Jerry, and he actually worked on Gravedale High. So Gravedale High, if you've never seen it, check out on YouTube. I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere. It didn't run for many seasons. I think it was maybe 1 or 2 seasons, like maybe 15 episodes or something. So it didn't run for very long. But Rick Moranis was the main character.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he was it was kind of early mid 80s, maybe mid 80s. He was, or maybe it was late 80s actually, but he was the main character. He was a teacher. He was just a human teacher who went to this school, and it was all full of monsters. The teachers were monsters, and the kids were all monsters. But obviously it was animated, so it was done in a fun way. But some of the characters that was there was a guy called Vinnie Stoker, who was he was a vampire, but he was like he's a bit like fucking a character out of Grease.
Yeah.
Like his hair was all
Sort
slick.
of a Fonz
Yeah,
kind of.
basically Fonzie. I think Fonzie and a vampire and Dracula is what they did. And there was other characters in there. They just sort of took a monster and then took kind of like somebody famous and kind of
You would
put
say a
them
bit of
together.
a monster mash.
Yes. Ooh, Johnny. But there was a really good voice cast. I think Tim Curry did one of the voices, and
Ooh.
there was a few other big names that did the voices. Ricky Lake was one of them, and your man, fuck, I always forget his name. He was Rorschach, and he was Freddy Krueger.
Oh,
Jackie Haley Earl.
Yeah.
He was one of the characters as well. So it was a decent cast and a really good concept, and I just loved it. And again, because I was discovering horror and discovering these characters, Dracula, Frankenstein. There was another character called Franken Tyke, who was like a junior, like a Bart Simpson version of Frankenstein. It was weird,
okay.
but it was brilliant. It was really good.
Nice.
Check out.
I'll have to check it out. It actually sounds quite good. And again, you've sold me on the voice cast alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll go have a wee dig around and see if I can find it somewhere.
Definitely, man. And it's not one that was super popular, but anyone that did watch it really, really loved it. I loved it. But anyway, Scooby Doo Zombie Island.
Scooby Doo on Zombie Island.
Scooby
Dubby on Zombie Dubbies.
Talking about voice cast, I had no idea the voice actors in this or the cast in this.
What a voice cast! It was actually I was watching it. I'd started watching it, and Una hadn't left for work yet, and it was the scene where Scooby and Shaggy are working the airport security, and the manager walks in as they've eaten all the food, and both of us at the same time went, "That's fucking Mark Hamill."
Yeah,
both of us exact same time, and then obviously does his main voice in it is Snakebite.
Snakebite.
But
or something.
The fisherman, the hick fisherman, but hearing him as the voice of Scooby and Shaggy's boss at the start, it was undeniable who that was. And then even the fact that in the credits, Tara Strong is not credited as Tara Strong. She's credited by her, I'm assuming her original name, her actual
right. What is her
stage name? I can't remember what it is in the credits. Hold on, because again, when you go to IMDb, it's Tara Strong, but in the credits as they roll, I think it's Tara. Starts with C. I'm gonna have to research this because I can't remember off the top of my head.
Danny, you should have done your research. Come on.
Charandoff. Tara Charandoff. So that was her maiden name. So obviously
Okay.
got married and became Tara Strong. But yes, she is credited as Tara Charandoff
Brilliant.
in the credits for this one. Because when I seen it, I was like, because I knew she was the voice of Lena. And then when the credits rolled, I was like, yeah, don't say Strong. But again, another voiceover legend
Classic.
there. And of course, you've got
Harley
all
Quinn.
Harley Quinn now as well for she was the original Harley Quinn in that series alongside Mark Hamill again. They just seem to have borrowed a lot of the Batman cast for this.
Yep.
And I was actually thinking there's a lot of some of the animations a bit 90s Batman series, but also 90s Spider-Man series.
Yeah, I was leaning towards the Spider-Man.
The Spider-Man, especially the what do you call Bo, the gardener. He's kind of got a bit of a Peter Parker vibe.
Yeah, it's that sort of strong jaw kind of
strong chin. Little bum chin.
They've updated Daphne a little bit and Fred to look a little bit.
They all got a bit of an update. Only, as I said, Scooby and Shaggy's design are pretty much faithful to the original, but the other three got a little bit more sharp edged, very sharp edges to the characters in this movie.
So basically, the plot is that they've all went their separate ways and they're all working their own jobs. Daphne's now working at a TV show, and Fred is her producer, and she's like a big newscaster, I suppose she is, isn't she?
Yeah, she was. It's Coast to Coast with Daphne. Oh, what's her surname again? Fred Jones.
Stokes.
Daphne Stokes. Is it Stokes? But yeah, it's Coast to Coast with Daphne, whatever her surname is, and then Fred Jones is. I'm trying to think. Is this the first time we ever get their full names? Because I can't remember anything prior to that where they give their full names. They've always just been kind of by their first names. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is there anything prior to that where we get to hear their full titles? But yeah, there's doing that, and then Velma's got a mystery bookshop, and Shaggy and Scooby are working airport security. And he's a sniffer dog, but he's a sniffer dog for contraband foods. Yeah. Which again, when I was watching, I was like, "This is the ideal job for them. Why didn't they get into this sooner?" I know. But of course, then they eat all the contraband. And it's like that's why.
But they go into the room and they're like, Shaggy does say something like, "Oh, this is the most perfect job."
Yeah.
And then they eat the fucking stuff. And, they're like, "Oh, there's still one gorgonzola left."
There's two gorgonzolas left. And then and that's when you actually really hear the Mark Hamill voice come out of that character, and he's like, "You're a pair of gorgonzolas."
I know.
It's just like...
brilliant, and it is funny, man. Like it did make me laugh, and you said it earlier. It's a lot of times you go back and watch stuff from your youth, and you think, "Oh, it's not as funny or not as good as it used to be." But sometimes it's actually funnier because you see it from a different perspective, and it was just really funny seeing those two with big fat bellies.
Yep. Sitting there, and you're just like, that's so. Again, you kind of go, that's typically them, But yeah, what a way to, just a nice way to introduce the film, because again, we've all kind of, for the majority of us, we've grown up watching all the rest of it, so we kind of know what their deal is. So to see them all kind of separating apart, we kind of get this notion of, well, they're obviously a bit older now, and you can kind of see, I think, in the character design of Velma, Daphne, and Fred. They all do look that bit older. Shaggy and Scoob are going to be perpetually young forever. But yeah, they've obviously all moved on a bit, but it's still very clear how close they are as friends when they come to then celebrate. When they come to celebrate Daphne's birthday, and they're still just having a good time. It's like, do you just want to go out for one more mystery together? And you're just like, that's nice. It's nice that, they introduce this notion of it. There's not been any sort of conflict or anything like that. It's just that they've grown up a bit. They've moved on with their lives a wee bit, but they can still kind of come back and be mates and have the crack.
I know. And I love how the characters are quite well defined. Individually, they have their own characteristics. And, like Fred's the leader, and, maybe he's a bit of a dick sometimes, but he's kind of like the determined leader of the group. And then you've got like Velma's sort of the quirky, but she's really intelligent. She's the one that kind of always finds out before everyone else, oh, this is what's happening, and this is what's happening. And Daphne's kind of, I suppose, if there was a sexy one, or if there was like kind of like a goody two shoes type one. I don't know how to describe her, but she's kind of clumsy as well.
She brings the kind of klutzy glamour to the whole thing. But again, she's feisty and has a bit of fight in her, and I think that's what's great about some of the later movies, and even I think that newest series really leans into the notion of she's a badass.
Because I know obviously their characters change through time because time changes, and it was back in the 60s and all that stuff. But as time did change and their characters did slightly change, she did become a bit of a. I remember her like, didn't she do karate and stuff? And she
was played by, was it not Buffy played her?
Aye, in the movies,
in the movies, yeah, and she was a martial arts kind of badass. She went and trained herself in martial arts after the crew had split up.
Because back in the early days, she was the one that always got caught.
Yeah, and she was the damsel in distress.
That was the running joke, yeah.
Yeah, she was always the damsel in distress. Usually the both of them would get caught and be damsels in distress, and Fred would try and solve the problem by a smart means, but Scooby and Shaggy ended up accidentally solving the problem with their usual shenanigans,
And obviously, Shaggy's just this fucking stoner who's like...
And he's just... Man, it cracked me up the bit when he's talking about he's getting ready for dinner. And he's like, how do I look? And he's just wearing the same outfit. And he's like, oh, just a little trim. Just as wee whiskers, man.
That's better. He doesn't even do anything. It's like, that's better.
Yep. He just takes the little tiniest bit off. But just what great characters. They're so endearing. And I think you just... Again, apart from Scrappy, I know Scrappy's a bit Marmite for people. You either love him or you hate him. But how could you hate any of these characters? No. They're honestly, as you say, so well defined and so well developed over the years. They've not gone stagnant or stale in any way. They've just moved with the times and have done naturally. There's not been any real... I dare say there's a few people out there that go, oh, I don't like that series because whatever. But again, for the most part, they've just kept coming along. There's no stopping them, I don't think.
I think the only thing that kind of was a wee bit annoying for me during watching this film, and I loved it from start to finish, and maybe I'd forgotten this, but Shaggy said like genuinely at the start of every sentence, and it got to the point where I was like, I know he's supposed to be like sort of like a beatnik or a hippie, and he's a stoner and whatever, and he's a bit of a throwback to that, but to say the word like at the start of every sentence or halfway through every sentence just got really quite infuriating for me. I don't know if you...
You're not a proper Ballymena man,
I know. No, I know, but yeah, of course. I mean, I say it all the time as well. But
it's such a... and it's like that, It's just I remember it being...
It's a wild handling here.
It's a wild handling. I remember being younger, and I would have used quite a lot of my vernacular when I was a teenager, and my granddad would go like.
I know.
And that was me being... He was like, stop that. So maybe you were doing that. Are you getting...
I know.
Turned into the old man.
I know.
That young man was it old man too much.
Yells at cloud or something. That's me. I'm getting like that. But it was really annoying. It just got really annoying after half an hour.
Like
Scooby Doo.
We're gonna get some chili, Scoob.
I know. But no, brilliant. Otherwise, everything else was brilliant. So we'll actually start talking about the movie now.
The plot, yes. So we've established they've all got their own jobs, but they're teaming up for Daphne's birthday. They're gonna... What is it? They're... Daphne and Fred want to go to New Orleans and they want to film haunted locations. And they want to see if they're actually haunted or not. They go down New Orleans and they visit all these different spots. We get to see a few different creature designs, which again, fantastic. But of course, they all turn out to be people. And Daphne's getting a bit fash with it all. They're kind of like, oh, yeah, it's been great. We've managed to disprove all these haunted locations throughout New Orleans. And Daphne's like, well, no, I want a real haunted house. I want to find somewhere that's actually haunted and record it for my show. And that's when we meet Lena. One of the chef at the mansion on Moonscar Island.
Moonscar Island is the one that I'm going to call it. It's an island. I assume it's just a very, very small island just off the coast.
It's in the bayou.
In the bayou, yes, that's right. It's in the bayou, and it's haunted, supposedly haunted by an ex-pirate called Marvin.
It's a pirate captain, Captain Moonscar.
Moonscar. Aye, Marvin. Is it Marvin though? Is
Can't
that his
remember if
first
it's
name?
Marvin Moonscar. Sounds good. I
Aye,
can't mind if that was his first name, but it's definitely
definitely
Captain
Moonscar.
Captain Moonscar.
And
Yeah,
he's called
hunts.
Moonscar because he's got a scar in his eye.
He's got a
It looks
scar
like
in his
a
eye. Looks
moon.
like a moon.
So
Again, what great, like even that character design, what a great character design that was. Just we all kind of know what a pirate captain, ghosty pirate captain looks like, but just adding that wee moon scar, you kind of were like, that makes him his own unique
what's the
pirate captain.
Yeah, but what's the obsession with pirates? Like, it seems to be a thing that's really pushed towards kids and.
Cause they're scary.
Who are?
Who are? E-boy gum.
Treasure?
Treasure, you say.
Fucking, but like, you know, even going back to like the Goonies, which was, you know, one of the best kids films ever.
So good.
It's all about kids going and wanting to find this
adventure, mystery, and
you know,
and the skeletons and pirates, one-eyed Willie. Yeah,
and
true, right enough. I
love
know.
it. I mean, I love it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's brilliant. But
it's so good, and as this film kind of spirals out as it plays out, we see that it's not just pirates, but the whole initial idea is that yes, it's a pirate captain he landed on the island way back when, and they apparently buried his treasure and the plantation. It's a plantation house, which as soon as I saw, I was like, that's a plantation house. And then they say it used to be a chili pepper plantation, and I was like, yep, there it is. I
was like, as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, hang on, please don't. I hope they don't go down this fucking whole route. And I was like, hang on, where are they at? They're in Louisiana. Oh, Jesus Christ!
It's gonna, and then
there's definitely going to be voodoo turning up in this somewhere.
There was voodoo. There was Confederate soldiers. That's everything. But I love, I absolutely love the Cajun accent. Those Cajun accents through it, like obviously Lena has a very strong one, and you've got the ferry captain who's like, oh, we're gonna get
Jacques.
you on down to Moonscar Island, don't you mind none. I absolutely love that kind of French South American twang.
Do you know my favorite Cajun accent of all time?
Oh my god, are you gonna say the Firefly from Princess?
Yes.
Yeah, Princess and the Frog. I love him so much. What is it? Evangeline.
I know.
The star in the sky.
And that's Jim Cummins. That's the same actor that did Jack. So, and I have to give a shout out to Janine, because while we were watching this, she was like, oh, I think that's the Firefly. And I was like, nah, it's not the same guy. And then I realized, hang on, it's Jim Cummins. So I went on IMDb and was like, oh, fuck, it is. You're right. And she was like, told you so,
motherfucker.
So, yeah, she's really good with voices like that, and she'll always do that if she can. But you're right, I love that Cajun. There's something just special about it, and the character from the Green Mile as well, your man who gets fried at the end
with the mouse, Mr.
Jingles.
Yeah, Mr. Jingles.
I know he's Cajun, but it's just such a unique accent, and it's a beautiful accent. But yeah, when they got to the plantation house, I was like, fuck, here we go. Are they going to go down the whole sort of,
It's a chili pepper plantation, but I mean later on we actually get a wee bit of history on what that is, and there didn't appear to be any slavery going on from what we could see in those flashbacks.
There wasn't. I know.
No visible slavery.
Thank God. Fuck's sake. But anyway,
it was one of those things when it happened. I was just like, I know. But yeah, yeah, I love the whole kind of like introduction to this going on the bayou, and then there's that sense of there's a bit of a Jaws moment when they first go over and Shaggy and Scoob fall out the boat.
That's right.
And those crocodiles come towards them, and there's actually a moment where nothing kind of seems to happen, and Velma throws the life ring out, and then the crocodile comes up and snaps at that, and I was like, that was a wee bit tense, because it looked like it was going to be okay, and then nope.
A wee jump scare.
A wee jump scare from a wee crocodile, or is it an alligator? I think it might be one of them there gators. I'm gonna get me one of them there gators. But there's the gator bit towards the end during the flashback about when the pirates chase off the cat worship colony. I mean, we'll get there, but fuck, this is for a kids show.
It really gets dark in some cases towards the end.
Dark, and I think that's why this Scooby Doo movie in particular sticks with me even now, is because the tone gets really dark, and the character design of the zombies, yes, because this, I would say this is probably one of my first introductions to zombies in movies, but also then the real villains of it, their design, I mean, we might as well just say it, werecats, is quite it's a bit terrifying. Jock, when he turns, you're a bit like, whoa.
They're
Like, the
like
transformation in this is almost on par with the likes of the Howling and stuff.
So, just a brief recap if you haven't seen it. They go to this plantation house. It's haunted by a pirate called Moonscar. We think his first name is Marvin. We can't remember.
Marvin seems like, it doesn't seem like a very threatening pirate name. My name's Marvin.
Hey, I shot Marvin.
Marvin.
Or fucking starving Marvin. Marvin.
Hank Marvin.
Marvin.
I'm Hank Marvin. So
I know. But so the house itself is actually built though from the remnants of the pirate ship, which I thought was fucking really cool, man.
That's right, man. Really... See that because I had completely forgot that was a thing. So when Velma starts like scraping away at the wall, I was like, bit rude going to someone's house and scraping away at their wall. But anyway, and then you see the name of the ship, and you're just like, oh.
So the ship was haunted, and now the ship.
Now the house is haunted because the ship is haunted.
See, even just previous to that, where the bit where the sort of the spirit rights get out. Like, fucking hell, that was awesome, man.
And then the beware, and the only way they actually see the ghost is in they've slowed down the footage and the camera, and that's the first kind of glimpse we get of Captain Moonscar. And you're kind of, I love how the whole way through, like, Velma and Fred are trying to logically think, well, what could have caused this? How are they doing it? They obviously expect Bo, the gardener, is to blame.
Because he's sort of set up from the start to be the red herring.
Yeah, he's a bit sketchy and a bit
he's
standoffish.
Never there. He always arrives just after it, and it's that whole thing where they're setting this up. And I agree with you. I love that Fred, being the logical one, is constantly thinking, oh, this is just some guy with a projector, or they've got strings hanging, or there's going to be some guy in a mask, because he doesn't actually really believe in ghosts. Velma a wee bit more so.
I think she wants to believe, but she has a bit of an X-Files kind of attitude.
But she's being a little bit more theoretical about it. She's kind of thinking, oh, but actually, how does it happen? Whereas Fred's just sort of being like, very blasé about it.
Yeah,
and I love that. I just love that the whole way through this movie. And I think something like adding like that to the story actually really adds a lot to how this movie plays out.
I love that even before we get to all that, when they first arrive on the island. And Fred has told Lena that Lena doesn't realize that there's a dog with them until they're getting on the boat. And she's like, oh, I did not realize there was going to be a dog. And Shaggy's like, oh, he's great with
dropping
cats.
The wee foreshadowing there.
A little foreshadow. And it's like, oh, my employer, she has many cats. And Shaggy's like, he's fine with cats. And Shaggy's he just... What was it? When she says, I love the one sort of gag that keeps going, rats. But the one gag that keeps dropping to this, every time somebody mentions dog, Scooby goes, rug? Like, he doesn't realize he's a dog, and I just love that. I love the kind of like how unaware Scooby is at times and stuff. But then when they get to the island and he sees all the rats, he goes chasing them and he ruins the garden, and then Simone comes out and he's like, what is this dog doing here? I love that whole kind of initial kind of setup and the tension that creates, because there's going to be something with cats. But talking about cats, I think it's time to introduce our peeps and creeps to the newest member of the Fright Club family, our little three-legged monster. I shall go and retrieve him.
A few moments later.
And we're back with our new member of the Fright Club. Danny, introduce.
This is Arthur, our three-legged cat.
Oh, hello, Arthur.
Arthur is our three-legged pussy. He had a little accident. He had to get one of his legs off, but he's doing the very, very best. And he is the goodest boy. And now he wants to die.
And now he's had enough TV time.
He's like, I'm out.
I've said hello. I'm out the fuck.
Fuck this shit. I am out.
Hi, Arthur. Thanks for saying hello.
Yeah, he's away. So,
but so cats.
Yes, cats. So cats
play a major part in this film.
They play a huge part in this film
because obviously Simone and Lena are part of this cat family, ancient cat family that has had
Ancient
this
cat worshipping cult.
Yeah, and before we get there, I want to actually speak about your guy Jacques, who was the rotund boatsman who takes them across,
Takes
and
them.
he obviously turns up later as one of the cats as well. But he reminded me of Wilfred Brimley from The Thing. That the legendary actor Wilfred Brimley. He sadly passed away not that long ago, but he was in The Thing,
Yeah.
and he was also in Cocoon. But just that face and the big bushy moustache, I was
Yeah.
just like, I guarantee that was designed on Wilfred Brimley.
They did it based on him. Yeah, that would make sense. And even the likes of Simone. I was watching this, and even during the transformation and stuff, I was like, wee bit of Dee Wallace in there. I don't know if you picked up on that. There was just something, even during the transformation, I was like, that's very reminiscent of The Howling.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just like,
And,
again, as we said earlier, there's just nice wee nods to horror throughout all the Scooby Doobies.
What's the other girl? Lena, isn't it? The other girl's
Lena, yes, voiced by Tara Strong.
Yeah, when I first saw her, I was like, oh, that's Esmeralda from Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Very,
like,
that
gypsy,
kind of traveler sort of look, the big hoop earrings and the red and black and stuff. Yeah. Again, what a great character, because you kind of assume, right, if there's going to be a bad guy, Simone's probably going to be the bad guy. She's the cat lady of all and the mistress of the manor and stuff. But to then have Lena turn as well, you're a bit like, oh. I think that was a great sort of moment when you find out that she's actually part of the whole thing, and then to find out Bo is nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Oh no, but not only that, Bo is an undercover cop.
He's an undercover cop looking into all the.
At the end, they're like, "Oh, what's going to happen? What how nobody's going to believe us." Well, actually, I've been working here for so long, and blah 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 blah, and it's just like, what a coincidence that he turned out to be,
a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, what another just random sort of twist to it, but great to kind of show that the government do actually care about people disappearing. Because I love one of the things I think's great about this. So we obviously get Captain Moonscar appears as a ghost and then appears as a zombie. His grave is found, but again, Bo's digging that hole, and we don't realize he's a cop yet. So we're just kind of like, what's he up to, digging holes with corpses inside? And then we get the Confederate general appears as a ghost in the mirror. And then later on, whenever the harvest moon appears and all the zombies rise up from the water, where obviously their bodies have been like just thrown in. And you see that it's not just pirates and it's not just Confederate soldiers, but there's also like people in like old suits, and you've got tourists, people in like Hawaiian shirts, and you eventually find out that they've actually been luring people to the island because they need to drain their life force in order to carry on living, because when they cursed the pirates, they of course then became the werecats, and in order to carry on living, they have to drain the life force of those who visit the island on the harvest moon. Which was great. But that we mentioned before about the scene with the pirates, when we get the flashback of like how the cat people came to be and all. And I mean, what a fantastic way to give kind of exposition, because it's not kind of forced on us too early, it's not too late, and it just plays out real nicely, gives us a nice kind of history to these characters. But when they land, so the Lena and Simone have been on the island, were the first settlers on the island, and we're starting to make a good life, and they worship the cat god, which, you know, who doesn't?
Everybody does.
Exactly. I mean, I have a cat. He is my god now, and that's just the way it is. But yeah, they're worshiping their cat god and having a wee festival under the moon, and that's when Captain Moonscar and his rogues land and decide that they're just going to bury the treasure. But while they're at it, they're going to pillage the island and force all its inhabitants into the bayou where they're eaten by alligators. And I had completely forgot that happened in the movie. And when it was happening, I was like, yes, we don't actually see it happen. We see them kind of run in the water and then the alligators going in towards them. But then it cuts away to Lena and someone's reaction to it. And you're just like, that's grim. That's grim as hell.
It's really grim, and it's you know, a lot for kids to take in. You know, it's a fairly convoluted story. Like, you know, when you think about it, and it would work really well as a feature. It's really well written,
So
and
well written.
I was actually surprised at how well written it was in terms of the structure and the plot and stuff, and the backstory and all that they did with it was really well done, and it was kind of spooky. And I will say that whenever you first see the zombies, when they first come up as like skeletons, and then their skin starts growing
It
back,
starts to flesh
and
out.
that animation was stunning.
Incredible.
Really stunning, really well done. Amazing designs as well. And I love the design of the zombies and the pirates. And I love the fact that the zombies are the good guys.
The zombies are actually the good guy. They're just trying to warn them,
Yeah.
and just get vengeance for
Mhm.
what has been done. Their life force being drained from them by these cat people. I think the zombie design's great, and I love that when they are avenged and they start to disintegrate, the way they kind of like disintegrate apart. Because the cat people they like turn to dust,
Mhm.
but the zombies almost like peel. There's like one of the fat tourist zombies, and its face kind of like peels away, but it kind of bellows down to the ground. And I was like, one interesting way to animate that. They could
Yeah.
have just done the like particle effect thing and have them all burst into
Just
dust,
fading away or something.
but it didn't. They kind of took the time to animate wee bits and pieces, and that fat
Mhm.
one's head skin just kind of rolls to the ground. And the dedication of the animators to this
Mhm.
is absolutely fantastic. And I think, you know, the likes of Hanna-Barbera are sort of at the frontier of animation. You know, they're sort of some of the first ones to kind of realize that. So it used to cost more time and money to animate each individual cell, but they found if they could just keep the body static and animate the head, that they could use the same frame but just lay over different heads.
Mhm.
And that was a cost effective method that they basically implemented, and it became a standard throughout animation.
Mhm.
But to then also still take the time and dedication to add wee things like that there, and obviously by the late 90s, the standards of technology had improved that much that they could do stuff like that, but it was still very much like hand drawn. And
Mhm.
you know, it's just incredible, and it shows the absolute dedication that they had to what was essentially, this didn't get a cinema release. It was a straight to TV VHS
Yeah.
release. And yeah, they still put all that time and effort in and got an amazing voice cast and some absolute tunes out of it.
There's something just so special about hand drawn animation that's, you know, sadly it is disappearing a little bit now, but has been for quite a few years. And as much as I do love CG and, you know, all these amazing animated films that look so real now, there's just something really special about.
Be a hand drawn, and I think that's why we were talking about the Princess and the Frog earlier. One of the last sort of hand drawn by Disney, and it looks amazing.
You
It looks
still get
absolutely
some
amazing.
stuff out there, but
Mhm.
it's, you know, it's
Just not as
not
frequent.
there as much. You know, it seems to be. I'm assuming it's cheaper to do now as
Yeah.
well, and more efficient. And obviously, it does look amazing that, you know, the computer generated stuff, and it's stunning. But you can't beat fucking hand drawn cartoons, man. You just can't.
No, you can't. And uh, as we've said, it holds up so well this year. Like, I could not recommend for anyone who hasn't seen it, and anybody who has seen it but hasn't watched it in years, go back and watch it. You'll have a great time, like a guaranteed great time.
I had said at the start, this was my first time watching it in full from start to finish. I do remember I was getting flashbacks whenever the cat people,
Yeah.
when they turned into the cats, the human cats, which were fucking horrendous, by the way.
Well, I can't even just show you the transformation. You see when they when Lena and Simone turn, and they're like the way their faces like scrunch up and they kind of get a bit hunched, and you can see as the action plays out, they're getting sort of hairier and more kind of grizzled looking.
I think it was more before they turned into the actual beasts at the end. It was that sort of hybrid, which was more terrifying to me. It reminded me of a film called Sleepwalkers, which I saw. Do you remember Sleepwalkers?
Mark Hamill's in that. Mark Hamill's at the start of as a cop, is he not?
And it was directed by Mick Garris, the great Mick Garris, and it's a Stephen King written film as well. And there's quite a few cameos in it. I want to say Clive Barker's in it, and there's a few good big cameos in it, and but it was an amazing film. I rent it, and whenever it came out, I don't know when it came out, early 90s, I think, and I was blown away by it. But it's kind of one of those sort of things where the effects in it aren't amazing. They haven't aged well, but it's almost like, oh, that's so bad that it's good in terms of you kind of.
We love a bad effect. Like
there's a real fondness for that sort of kind of, they were doing their best, but it didn't quite age well. And there's a specific scene where, and it's a really famous GIF or meme or something on Twitter. It does the rounds every so often of the guy in the car, and he's looking, and he changes from like a human face to a cat face to a sort of weird hybrid, and his head gets bigger, and his nose, it's got that sort of cat-like nose, and it really reminded me of that film whenever they turn into cats at the end. I just love that image of them, and the animation is great, and I just love that image of them being like half human, half cat before they turn into the beast, the cat beasts at the end, where they're all furry and stuff. It was the in-between part that really was quite terrifying.
It's when Jock just turns, so obviously as a human he's just like wee dumpy fat ferry sailor, ferry captain, and then he just suddenly just goes like brah, and he becomes this massive like hench ginger catman, but he still has his mustache, of course, but he's just this massive werecat with big claws and teeth, and he's just ready to like absolutely tear Shaggy and Scooby apart. I love that as well. I just love when he steps off the boat and he's just like, "Oh, I've been expecting you too," and just turns. What a fucking moment!
It's a great moment. It was a bit of a throwback to the Lost Boys as well. Whenever the head vampire, turns out to be, I can't remember his name, the guy from the video store, who's dating the mother, and and you're like, oh, he's the head vampire. Holy fuck! Yeah. But I love that scene. I love that character as well, and oh man, just that end was great. Really great ending.
So good. Honestly, what a movie!
What a great movie.
I'd love to watch that again. Actually,
I know. Honestly,
I think we should. I am 100% down to watch more Scooby Doo movies.
We have to do some sort of a spin-off show just based on these Scooby Doo movies.
Sort of based on Scooby Doo. We'll watch everything from the good, the bad, to the ugly.
We'll go right back to the
Scooby Doo and the gang,
and we'll go through the Scooby Doo movies, and we'll pick
out a few choice episodes.
Yeah, we'll pick out a few ones, obviously. But if you want us to see. If you want to see us do Scooby Doo, let us know in the comments. Don't do
Scooby Doo. That's bestiality. Even if he doesn't realize he's a dog, he is a dog.
If you want to see us cover the Scooby Doo movies, then
let us know. Give us a name. Drop us a couple of name suggestions for us talking about Scooby Doo. Meddling Mang could be one.
Obviously, well, I was going to say we talked about the plantation and stuff, so you can't have a plantation or you can't have anything set on the bayou without having voodoo in it, because that's just like...
Of course, we forgot to talk about voodoo, one of the spookiest things about New Orleans.
So it was like that thing where they're controlling the people because they're making the voodoo dolls of them, and that's how they're kind of controlling them.
There's quite a few mixed sort of... traditions in here. You've kind of got the worshipping of cats, and you've got this kind of big cat statue, which is almost kind of Egyptian. And then you've obviously got the Haitian voodoo thrown in there, and you've got the Cajun lifestyle with the gumbo and the biscuits, and they're growing chili peppers, and there's kind of it's a big cocktail of culture within it. But yeah, the voodoo dolls bit, I was a bit like, of course. How could we not go to New Orleans and down to Bayou without a little bit of voodoo?
All they've eaten since they got here is gumbo and biscuits. I'm surprised they didn't bring out
beignets. They had some beignets.
But there was no jambalaya. Where was the jambalaya?
No jambalaya, that's true. Not a bit of jambalaya, but they had beignets before they go to the island, and then on the island they just seem to stuff their faces on gumbo and biscuits.
Yep.
And really, really hot chili peppers.
Yeah.
Moonscar Island chili peppers.
Definitely.
That even Scooby and Shaggy can't handle.
No, they're drinking water afterwards because they're burning.
Yeah, because that's how they actually. That's how Scooby ends up sort of fighting off Jacques Werecat, is by like squishing a chili pepper into his face. Yeah, macing him.
I know. So yeah, really enjoyed Zombie Island. Can't wait to watch more of the Scooby Doo movies.
100%.
We'll definitely get there soon. But that's the end of the episode. Danny, anything else you want to say before we go out?
No, just remind everybody to like the video, comment below, name suggestions, and what's your favorite Scooby Doo movie episode, other content, and subscribe and hit that bell icon somewhere around
the channel.
Here, you know where it is. You know where it is. And Gav, you want to tell them where else to find us?
You can find us on Twitter and Insta at the Fright Club NI. You can check out the website www.frightclubni.com. Buy a t-shirt. Check out some of the articles that we've got on there. You can go back and watch some of the archived episodes on our YouTube channel as well. If you can do that, that'd be awesome. Best way that you can support us is just tell all your horror friends that we exist. Yeah. Just tell them we exist. Let them make up their own mind. We don't make any money at this, so if you can drop us a wee tip on the website, you can, that'd be great as well. So,
and we still have t-shirts and patches.
We've got a few t-shirts left and a few patches.
A few patches. So if you're interested, hit us up.
And big thank you to everyone who's subscribed so far. We're sort of slowly seeing our subscriptions go up, and we appreciate it.
Really, really appreciate it.
We do. So that's the end of the episode. Until next week, guys. Oh, we've got a special episode next week. Just want to say it may or may not be a two-parter, so just keep an eye out for that one. But anyway, until next week, thanks for all the support so far, guys. Stay safe. Take care. Bye.
Zoinks. Zoinks.